or two, shall we? A pick I'm super glad Adam picked because I didn't think to pick it myself. And look, I'll talk about that in a minute. But The Man from Earth from 2007, starring David Lee Smith, the great John Billingsley Phlox himself, and Tony Todd, also the great Candyman and Kern himself, directed by Jerome Bixby. So we've got some great Star Trek alum in this movie, as Adam and I care deeply about, of course, as hosts of Star Trek shows. And Murphy's getting into the old Trek. We're bringing him on. We're bringing him on board.
I'm slowly eking myself in, but I kind of feel... Okay, I'm gonna say my piece right now. One, I feel this movie may have been skewed in your guys' bias in favor because it's so Star Trek heavy related, which is not a bad thing.
I would say no.
No.
Okay.
No,
fair.
in its
All right.
Star Trek similarities, maybe, in the fact that it's like a philosophical meditation and a historical meditation, which a lot of Star Trek episodes are. In that way, yes. The fact that Star Trek actors are in it, no. Star Trek actors are in a lot of shit movies and TV shows.
So then my initial assessment
Masters
that
of the
strong
Universe,
Star
for
Trek
example.
ties don't add to the favorable scale in any point. So
I will. Okay, Chris. I will say this: is that John Billingsley, to me, we don't see enough of him post Enterprise. Like the guy's a great
actor. Great actor.
And
he shows up in a lot of TV shows for like one episode, but you have to watch all those
right,
TV shows to see him. Like, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the second thing is
Well, look,
this
let
movie
me come in
presents
here.
a great
All right,
this movie presents a great thought experiment, which I enjoyed, but it reminded me a little too much of Scott Adams' God's Debris book, where it also presents a really great thought experiment, but it mostly just presents the questions, and then once you start getting into the nitty-gritty, it just presents more questions, and then that just becomes an endless lot of questions up into ultimately a kind of dissatisfying ending.
That's not what this is.
That's exactly what this is. That's what I'm saying.
No, no.
I found,
answers. But like answers aren't as interesting as questions. For one thing, that's what.
Can I just interject here for a second, because I didn't see this movie ever until last year. My son showed it to me.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And I don't know if it would have attracted me, honestly, because it's set in one room essentially. There's not a lot of action. It's a very philosophical movie. Me too.
It's historical. It has so many fascinating historical notes.
Like when you read like the summary,
Men versus Jesus.
Yeah, but I mean, when you read the summary, it doesn't really grab you. You got to know a little bit about it before I would open the door. My son, again, I kind of trust his judgment. He's got good. So we sat down. I had no idea what to expect. I had zero. And this just kept going for me. And this where I differ from you, Chris, is that I thought the end was good. Like it had a solid. Didn't see it coming. Didn't see that ending coming.
There are big twists and turns in this.
The sequel.
I didn't see the end coming, but like when I saw it, I was like, okay, he's been around this man for 10 years, and at no point did he not remember.
So.
No, he doesn't remember him.
We want to set this movie up again because we haven't really talked about it yet.
Yeah, we're
all I want to say before we go through it is I saw this movie when it came out, and it was immediately one of my favorite movies. And I hadn't really seen it since then. Well, I loved it so much then I watched it a few times. But, like, I hadn't seen it in, how long has it been now? Like 13 years or more. And I was super glad that I still love it as much as I did. This is a top 10 movie for me. I love this movie.
I remember the trailer playing on the Sci-Fi Channel. That's what I remember of this film, especially after watching the trailer. I was like, okay, I kind of remember hearing about this film, but I never sat down to watch it.
It's just...
Am I mad I watched it? No, it's a really well-presented idea. It just wasn't presented well.
See, I disagree. I think it's one of the best scripts ever. Like, this would be a legendary bottle episode of Star Trek. Like,
That's
this
what I'm
script is
saying.
really good. But
It
like,
would have been a great Star Trek episode. It could have lost like 30 minutes, but it was just it
I don't think you
it
could cut out a single
it
line
suffered
out of this
in it.
movie.
No, it's not about the line. The dialogue's well done. Some
And
of
the
the actors I
performances
could
are
do
great.
without. Some of them
Billingsley
are
and Tony
not all.
Todd are really good.
Some of them are, but
Yeah, the
ultimately
religious lady,
it suffers in of its production value and the cameras, the lighting, and like all that stuff. It's so low quality that it suffers the enjoyment of the film for me.
I think that
so
makes
yeah.
it a little more real.
Well, let's
Where
watch the
you
trailer.
just feel like
and
you're
then get
in that
refreshed.
room with these people. Yeah.
What if a man from the upper Paleolithic
didn't
survived
ha-
until the present day?
You know what could happen? Yeah, the pancreas turns over
Go ahead
cells
and talk
every
over the
24
trailer,
hours, the
Ed.
stomach
Yeah, you can
lining,
talk
in
over
3
this.
days, the entire body. In 7 years, but the process falters. Now, if a quirk in his immune
See, I like this.
Yes,
They
I mean,
explore it from
perfect
historical,
perfect renewal,
and
yeah.
anthropological,
He
from
could,
biological,
duck
from like
decay.
they explore this from
We were just talking about a
philosophical, from so
caveman
many
who
angles.
survives until the
It's
present
just
time.
And he
fascinating.
hasn't aged a day in 10 years. Every woman on the faculty would give anything to have that secret.
I don't have eyes. in
That
the
was
back
a
of my
funny
head.
scene.
I can't hear a flea walking. I am not in any way Superman.
There have always been legends of such a thing, a creature, not quite human, taking not the blood, but the life force itself.
God has spoken through man to make his word clearer.
You got 4 men of science completely baffled, my friend.
Who do you think I am?
You are absolutely certifiable.
You stand alive and tall in a graveyard that you
That
have
guy's in a
filled.
lot of things too, including Star Trek.
Then perhaps it is time to die.
He was the best Star Trek.
He's the guy from Office Space who has his jump to conclusions match. Yeah. Like, it's hard to make a trailer of this movie and not, like, give things away, I imagine. But I love
I mean,
it.
they
Like,
kind of do and they kind of don't. Like, I don't know. I'm like I said, I
let's
like
get
the
into the
questions they were
questions.
presenting.
let's
right?
get into it. Let's get into the things they talk about and talk about it, because that's what's great about this movie. Like, we had to watch 65 after this, which is just mind-numbingly stupid and bad.
I'm kind of disappointed we're not talking about that one first and then doing this one. But anyway,
No. See, we still have energy. We'll talk about intelligent things, and then we'll start smashing our heads off our desks and talk
Okay.
about 65.
so this is a very excellent. Like, I just love the opening of this film. It's like you see a guy packing his car. You don't really know what's going on, and then his friends show up to give him a sort of a send off. Again, just like, and this is Chris. This is where I like it. It's spontaneous. Like, I feel like it's a spontaneous whole evolution into the picture, you know, and
Yeah. Like, it's not this overly prepared or curated opening that would
no,
be,
but you don't have a grand
Yeah,
send off.
exactly.
You've got a bunch of
Yeah.
weird academics
Yeah.
who, and I say that lovingly, by the way, that
Oh, sure.
you know, don't plan anything. They're just, oh shit, he's leaving. We got to go say goodbye, you know, and then off they go. So, and it's just the start is like, okay, I'm hooked. I want to know more. Tell me more. What's
Because
going on?
he's like, oh, by the way, I'm leaving tomorrow, and like doesn't give them any warning. He's like, hey,
Yeah.
friends, bye. And they're like, what? Maybe we should go drive over there. Like, that's kind of weird.
Okay, sorry, I was a little distracted there. I got a work message I had to deal with. Okay, so this film commences with Professor John Ullman, played by David Lee Smith.
Who I don't know from anything, but he's good in this. He's fine in this. He's not as good as Billingsley and Tony Todd, but they're greats. But
Sorry, guys, I just got to deal with something. Talk about this for a
yeah,
second.
yeah. Well, I'll start flicking us through this thing, because like this recap should take us like 10 minutes, or not even,
Yeah.
because it's all dialogue, and we're not going to go through all the dialogue. So his friends come over. They're noticing he has certain old artifacts, and he's just like, yeah, look, we still got furniture, but they're coming for the furniture. in like the next couple hours. So
What wasn't the first thing they talked about was like a picture of Van Gogh that he had, like,
yes, they saw him loading a Van Gogh, but he's just like, oh, it's probably like a reprint or whatever. And she's looking at the back of it. She's like, I don't know, man. Like, get this appraised, because it's even
it's written to somebody,
to him, to Jean,
yeah,
to Jean. So that was interesting. So then they had the discussion. He's having his friends, and they're questioning about why he's leaving. So they're already grilling him. They're like, dude, so like, are people trying to kill you, or like what? Like, because he's been just offered tenure, and they all want tenure, and he's like 30 something, and they're all older than him, and they're like, dude, you got tenure at like 30 something, just take it. And then he's like, nah, I'm moving on. They're like,
but then he presents the question.
He does. He's just like, because he's been nervous and he keeps dancing around. They're like, dude, like, you clearly want to say something. John Billingsley says to him. He's like, just say it. Geez, is this the end of the movie? No. Okay.
No.
So, yeah, here we go. So, yeah. So, he's just like, well, what if? Play along with me here. And they're like, is this for a book? He's just like, well, say it is. Say this is for a book. And let's just start the conversation. You know what I mean? Which I like. He just wants to get the conversation going. He doesn't know how, because he's never done this before.
But again, can we just talk about the characters 1 second here? Because everybody's in the room. I love this setup. You got the cool kind of professor with the young girl, probably your graduate
Not the
student.
cool professor. You get the creepy professor who's dating his student. I don't like that guy. I'm like,
okay.
No,
because
that guy's terrible.
Yeah.
Then you got like, the other ones, probably, like that woman there, the religious one.
Yeah.
It's just a very eclectic group. But
There's the biology professor, the anthropologist.
Yeah. But you've got this thrown out, an anthropology guy. You got this thrown out there, this question, and maybe you want to read it out there what the question was, but you can see
he's just like, well, if say a Cro-Magnon from the Upper Paleolithic, he doesn't say Cro-Magnon, he's just from the Upper Paleolithic, but it's like survived till today, what would he be like? And they just start to figure it, like, try to hypothesize what he would be like.
But it's the perfect audience. You got who they wrote into this movie now. You got everybody. Like,
which he says later when he like tries to be like, I was just kidding. He's just like, I had the perfect audience. I had to do it, So, but like, it's interesting because John Billingsley's like, look, he would be basically the same as us. He's just like, he's just as intelligent as us. It's just they would just know less. It's just like, how much do you know? And that's another interesting thing in this movie where they keep being like, well, like,
hang on. All right, we're like passing my favorite scene, or quote unquote favorite scene. All right, I'm back into this. Sorry.
So far, what he says fits.
Oh, yeah, into any textbook.
And that's where I found it. How can I have knowledgeable recall if I didn't have knowledge? It's all retrospective.
All I can do is integrate my recollections with modern findings.
Caveman. You gonna hit me over the head with a club and drag me into the bedroom?
You'd be more fun conscious.
Oh, John.
Oh, John.
Okay, now it's not the "Oh, John, hit you over the head" conscious line. It's the knowledge before knowledge. How can I recognize anything? That's not how knowledge works. This is like the first big plot hole in this movie that drove me insane. He's supposed to be of age of 35, and he stops aging at 35, and he proceeds to live the next 14,000 years.
Yeah.
Only catching pneumonia a couple times.
Yeah.
Apparently dodges all the wars. Doesn't get shot, stabbed, killed at any point. It gets tied to a cross. It's like there's so many plot holes that but the biggest one was saying,
plot hole.
I didn't.
Let me
no,
tell
no,
you
hang
why
on.
That's not a plot hole.
The biggest one. No, hang on. The biggest plot hole I personally found is when he's like, "How could I not know what knowledge is of knowledge?" That's not how knowledge works. You are going to know that. Sure, you don't know this is a tree and this is a leaf, but the day you know that what a tree and a leaf is, you're going to recognize that. So for him, at one point, he says, everything
That's not what he's saying there.
Everything prehistory is muddy, and I can't quite remember
Yes.
it because it's
Yes.
been ages ago. I call
Yes.
bullshit on that. I call bullshit
What?
on that explanation.
I can't
Yes.
remember what I did last week, Murphy. And
Doesn't
you expect
matter.
somebody to
You're
remember
gonna
something from
you were gonna
14,000 years ago.
You are
no,
going
you're
to
not.
remember
No,
running
you're
from your
not.
life. You're going to remember running for your life from a saber.
He says he remembers
tiger,
the
a bear.
traumas. He says that's the things he remembers, the traumas, and that's
But he
about
doesn't
it.
talk about any of them. He doesn't talk about like.
So he doesn't have all day.
He doesn't.
Those are
he doesn't
irrelevant
have
to
all
his
day.
story. Like, yeah, I was chased by a saber-toothed tiger once. That tells them nothing. That's not a plot hole. That is how knowledge and memory works. What he was talking about when he's saying that's not how knowledge works is he's saying, he's just like, because they're like, well, how can you not be the smartest guy in the world and not know everything? He's just like, I'm still just one guy all the time. Like, the most I can know is just like what one person can know in any given place at any given time. Like, you could be 10,000 years old and not even be the smartest person in your town.
No,
And
but
that
you still
wouldn't
have
be, like, unbelievable.
10,000 years of knowledge and advancement of skills above
And
anybody
let me tell you
else.
about that why that would be muddy to him, other than the fact that you definitely can't remember that long. Like, people forget almost everything they've done in their life by the time their life is over. Almost everything. Like, of all the moments, you've already lost 99.9999999% of all moments you've ever experienced.
Can I just expand on that for a second? Kevin? I was at with some friends, and I say friends. It was excellent to be back, but I hadn't seen a few of them for almost 29 years. Okay, 29 years, and they were talking about stuff that I was there. But it took prompting to recall. Like, I mean, I do buy the fact that you do lose things along the way. Now, Chris, I understand where you're saying traumatic events and things like that, but at the same time,
he remembers those, he says.
Yeah, you want to push them out as well. So, I mean, I don't think it's a plot hole. I think that maybe they could have gone into it, but they only had 2 hours. So.
Exactly. And also, the reason why those first 10,000 years are a blur to him is because for those first 10,000, he's like, it all changed at Mesopotamia, and then I can remember things and place things. That makes total sense, because before that in human history, for that 10,000 years, nothing changed for humans. It was hunter-gatherer life. That nothing changed drastically for 10,000 years. Every day was the same as the day before and the day after for 10,000 years. And then Mesopotamia happens, and all of a sudden there's city-states, and all of a sudden there's people creating laws and coming up with like arts, and like then civilization happens. But before that, every day was the same for 10,000 years. There would be no benefit to remember it, and so you wouldn't.
Okay, so I think he's going to remember the initial moments of his life, and
do you remember the initial moments of yours?
Yeah, I remember many initial moments of my life. Yes,
Do you remember being born?
No, I don't remember being born. There's obviously
the initial moments of your
past
life.
the age of 5 or 6, I started having recollections of memory, and into my teenage years,
How many?
I can remember certain events and moments.
How many memories can you remember clearly from when you were 6, for example? I maybe have one.
Being in the basement of my father's basement, being surrounded by 3 of my friends, playing with an audio machine, and that audio tape on it was the Monkees. I remember hitting the record button over that Monkees tape, and my dad being mad about that.
How long ago was that?
When I was 6, so like 31 years ago.
As opposed to 14,000. You want to compare those experiences.
No, that's what I'm saying is okay, Davan. The fact is, even if it's 14,000 years ago, the only thing that's going to change is his perception of time. 10 years is going to feel like a month to him at best, but I don't think he's going to completely forget about like the key moments that made him in his existence and the person that he supposedly is.
But
that started at Mesopotamia, but because before that he was a hunter-gatherer who did the same thing every single day for 10,000 years.
And he's not gonna talk about the animals that he.
Why would you talk
encountered.
about that same? He did, and he said he even knew the painter who painted those famous cave paintings in France. They killed him. Remember, they stoned him to death for like. I don't know, like something died. They stoned that guy to death or some shit.
Listen, if you want to talk about favorite parts in the movie, like, there's a part in the movie where they're talking about the realism of this, but they're talking about how there's absolutely no way to prove what he's saying is correct or true.
Yeah.
There's also no way to disprove it. And that to me is my favorite. Like he's right. I mean, this guy could be making up anything, but it's a great story.
Other
It's a
Other
great
than go
story,
to his
yeah.
lab, which he rejects. He's like, come to my
You know
lab.
what
He's
else?
like, no, I'm not going to your lab. I'll never get out of your lab if I go to your friggin' lab. Like,
Which is a good point. Like, there's lines that that were it's well thought out, and every time they would present a question and be like, "That sounds like bullshit," then they would start explaining it and going into it further. But then they would immediately interrupt those thoughts with another question, and then they would like kind of get lost on these like little tangents of whatnot in here now. And it's just like, I found it kind of irritating because again, I find the biggest plot hole. He's like, "Oh, I only got pneumonia a couple times." It's like, no, there's no way you survived
the other
all
thing
of
I
that
wanted
without
to
getting injured.
mention. Okay, that I've thought about that too, and I'm like, the sickness thing, that's easy. They even say he has perfect cellular regeneration. So like a man, would he have to be sick to actually get sick? Like he would never really get sick. But to avoid being killed in 14,000 years, that gives you pause, and you're like, well, how is that possible? And for me, he had to be really lucky for the first couple hundred years. But after that, after you've gained more experience than anyone else you'll encounter could ever have, I bet you get really good at avoiding conflict. And certainly avoiding wars. Like, if you've seen 1,000 wars start, you'd walk into a town and friggin' immediately know if, like, shit's about to go down. And you'd find a way to avoid it, you know what I mean? If you've been through the horror of war once or twice, and you have that benefit of experience that he has, you'd find a way to avoid it.
You know what else I liked about this is they didn't do a oh my god, only can be only one. Come on, help me out here, guys. They didn't have him have all of these riches and stuff like that tucked away.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he basically had the painting and like one thing that he says he got from a shop. I feel
he has personal items. Yeah.
Like, how does he not hold on to like a spearhead or something from like his first tribe? Like, I don't see him.
He explains that. He pulls out a pen and he's just like, "How long would you keep this?"
Right.
He's
okay,
like,
but
he's
that's,
like, if I lived for 10,000 years amongst spearheads, what significance would any one spearhead ever have to me? Why would I keep it? What benefit does it have for him? He's gonna live forever for all he knows. Why would he care about a spearhead?
The memory
now,
of
a painting given to you by the painter, I see why he kept that. You know, but like, why would he keep a spearhead?
Well, it's
a tool to him. That's why he makes the pen analogy. He's just like, why would you keep this pen? You wouldn't.
Okay, it could have. Like, I feel like now. I honestly feel.
And how much shit can you carry with you?
If he had loved somebody, and they gave him something, he would have held on to that. That's what I feel like.
He did the Van Gogh painting.
That's a painting from her friend. I mean, like from his like prehistoric times. There was no examination of his prehistoric life, which is ironic because this episode is supposed to be about prehistory. Everything was after prehistory, and it was an examination of what it'd be like to be thousands of years living through these eras of times. And
yeah, but that's the beauty of it is that
anything.
He didn't have to prove it. Like, either these guys accept it or they don't, you know, and that he didn't care.
It's a story or it's not. Care. Yeah, he doesn't care. He's like, even if you do believe me, no one's going to believe you. And 2 months from now, you're not going to believe me. Like, you may believe me now. 2 months from now, you won't. You'll be like, oh, man, what a friggin' story that was. Like, yeah.
But
that is the beauty of it. I agree.
Like, I just love the way, like, the whole bunch of these guys all get into this and this whole debate, and they try to keep poking holes in his story, but they can't. And yes,
and then they eventually believe him, and then he's like pulls the rug out from under him, and they're just like, "You son of a bitch!" Like, you freaking.
Well, it's only because the psychiatrist is like, if you don't tell them that this is a hoax, they're gonna go crazy. Eventually, their just brains are gonna break over the concept.
And really, it's just like, his brain that's breaking over the concept. But you come to find out his wife just died the day before, and like, he shouldn't really be there in this room.
And he's like walking around with like a gun and shit. It's like,
he's seriously like, yeah.
But yeah, like the it's just like this lighting it suffers. There's so much about the production value of this that ultimately makes this idea.
But this
suffer.
isn't the movie to nitpick production over. It's not like everything in this movie looks better than the CGI dinosaurs from '65. which don't even look like dinosaurs. They just redesign things into these weird ogre goblins, even though it's supposed to be on Earth 65 million
I'll
years
get
ago.
into that. Don't
Like,
worry.
That's
don't
crap.
worry about
this
that.
is just a dark candlelit room.
You're not okay. One, you're not wrong about the CGI dinosaurs in 65. But two, you're not going to tell me that
Dinosaurs.
there were shots in 65 that weren't better looking than shots in this film. You can't say
so
that to me with a straight face.
It's a different movie. You can't even
Different
compare them.
movie. Like, you're gonna compare
Yes, it's a
5
different
people
movie,
standing
and
in a room to somebody
Look,
in a
so
My
go back,
point
go back one screen, please. That's the set
one?
right there. That's
Yeah,
the set.
that's the set.
I know that's the set. That's what I'm saying is that this film idea, the presentation of this idea suffers because it only had a budget of like $200,000 and was literally.
What do you
shot in a
want? What would
cabin.
you add? Like, do you want them to
would've
go
added
for a walk?
better lighting.
Like,
I would have.
Like,
No, I
what
would.
would that
I would
add
have
to
just
this
added better
movie?
lighting and given them a better space, which could have provided more
All right,
depth
that's
of
fair.
angle and
For your
like provided
enjoyment, that's
wider
fair.
lenses and just a production of better value in that. That's what
That's
I would have
fine.
liked.
no,
to
see, that's what I don't like about modern movies. It would just look unrealistically pretty.
This is what I deal
This is
with
supposed to be
every time.
Look, for
This is
me,
supposed to be a place that's being torn apart as they're sitting here. Like, it's,
like for
what
me,
do you
this
want?
guy,
How
he
pretty do you
doesn't-
want? How many lens flares do you want?
he doesn't. He lives in a crappy little place. Look at there's soot up the fireplace. Like I don't. This was like
Which would be a big place to him. Probably.
It was a dialogue movie. It was a conversationalist movie. We didn't.
Yeah.
I don't. For me, I didn't. And I didn't need. I didn't need more. I got everything I needed out of this.
Anything you would add would only distract from the conversation.
I don't even know. It could have been
Like,
lit better, I
what-
guess. But
what does that?
That's what I'm saying.
What's better? But
No,
what
no,
does
no.
better mean?
But hold on.
Look at all
What
this
does better
negative
mean in
space.
this
Look at all of this
context?
negative
Chris,
space in the
Chris.
left corner.
Let me just say here.
What's
I
the
don't,
problem?
when I was-
It's a
can I just
talking
finish?
movie.
Hold on.
Yeah,
When I'm
yeah.
watching this scene particularly, I don't. I'm watching her and him. Like I don't
Yeah,
give a shit
exactly.
about that left side. It's not. It didn't distract me.
That's like the definition of nitpicking. You're
No,
not supposed
but like
to be looking
the
at the
set
wall
could have
behind
been
them.
made. Yes, I'm allowed to nitpick over the design of a film because I think ultimately it suffered. Like again, this is a well presented, like a well thought idea. It's a great thought experiment. It just could use of a better camera, better lights, a little bit more money to go into it.
I don't know
and
what kind of camera they use, but
I
It
do,
was a
and they're
handheld.
not great
Two
cameras.
handhelds or something, wasn't it?
There's two
Oh,
Panasonics.
was it really?
Yeah.
That looks great for hand.
Just barely. It's serviceable.
$200,000 is not a lot of money. Holy crap! I mean, that would have been eaten
That's
up by
all.
I don't
That's
know
how
what it
much
was.
this
I'm
film
just-
costs. $200,000.
Oh my god!
So
like you got to pay
That's
that. to
all
John
talent,
Billingsley.
then, man.
Yeah,
It's
man,
literally
that's
pretty
all
much
talent.
the talent and the cameras and probably catering and set.
That
yeah.
couch that he decides to keep. The $50
See,
couch they got at, like Value Village.
So yeah, basically all the friends start leaving this party, and I guess this is basically where we're getting to your favorite scene, Davan, which is
Oh yeah.
John Oldman. What other pun names have you used?
Lots. John Paley for John Paley.
I just love how accidental this is.
John Savage.
In a
Got
lesser
really
movie,
crazy
this
about
would have
60
been
years
intentional
ago
from
when I was
one-
teaching
one
at
of your
Harvard. I was
perspectives.
John Thomas Partee. John Tea Party, Boston Tea Party.
I get it.
Yeah, I know.
Wait. But Boston? 60 years ago? John Partee?
And then he immediately recognizes what's
You
happening.
did not
This
teach
is dramatic.
chemistry.
I shed a tear
I
during
cannot
this scene.
believe you!
Your mother's
how does he
name
not keep track of his
was Noah.
children? How
No.
does he not know that
No.
he's been hanging out with his own child for the past
Yes.
10 years?
Nola.
Because he's chosen not to keep track of his children because you would
reject
go see
this.
them. I have children. You would go see them.
My thoughts
You
then.
would, like,
That's what I'm saying. Why is he gonna, even though he can
and he
live
probably
forever,
did
why is he gonna?
for a couple hundred years. Maybe he did try doing shit like that, and it just was a nightmare. And like after all these thousands of years, like this is what he's settled into as the only way he can exist, which is to leave everything behind every 10 years, which is understandable when you think about it, because he doesn't age. That is a problem. He would be a lab rat. now.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I found this movie had a
Before
ton
they
of,
said they would
basically-
think he's a witch, and like they chased him for being a witch or a vampire. Like they say he's the. Or I love one of the things I like about this movie is all the historical things he sort of was the cause of, whether it was like the vampire myth or Jesus or all these things. Like you probably would. It's like It's like Forrest Gump. Like Forrest Gump was in all these moments. Like this is like a longer, stretched out Forrest Gump. Like if Forrest Gump can do all those important things in like 20 years, imagine the things you would show up in. Like knowing Van Gogh. Like nothing he says is unbelievable because he's had so much time.
And that whole evolution, how he got to be Jesus, you know, like from studying Buddha and then going to Europe, like it's just cool. It's just like you know, it's just.
I love what he says about the apostles too. He's like, well, they weren't really apostles because like they didn't really teach anything. Like the fisherman guy, he just learned how to fish a little bit better. Like, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong. Like those scenes were like the dialogue was really well done, and it went through. I feel like it definitely gave more explanation on him being Jesus than anything else in the film. Like it was briefly touched upon everything. Up
They
until
pushed
that
him on
moment.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And they talked
Because she
about
was
that. I think
religious
that's what this
and she
film
got all
won was
upset.
just like an examination of like, well, what if Jesus was actually alive? What if Jesus was a caveman? You know, it's just.
I
Like,
think that's one of the main things they wanted to explore. But I do
Yeah.
think they wanted to explore this sort of like protracted Forrest Gump idea. Like, what if somebody lived for 14,000? Like, I feel like this movie started like spitballing the script and everything. The way the scenes start, just like, well, what if? And let's just brainstorm that. Like, I feel like it felt like the writer's room of the movie they're in. Like, those initial scenes. There's a lot of interesting stuff in this movie.
You know what
I will
else was
say,
kind of
Murphy,
cool?
Like,
Like looking.
I know your like cameraman brain wants to nitpick those angles, and that's fine. But for this movie, that is 99% about the script and the performances, especially the script, I would say. Judge it on those merits. Like, that's what it's about. Like, you may see some camera issues, but I guarantee that people who made this movie didn't even care about that. So it's not like they failed at it.
It's
It
very
just
clear
wasn't
they
important.
didn't.
Yeah.
No,
that's- 'cause
no.
that's
The
not
whole
what's
thing
important.
is meant to be for Michael Bixby because it was his last great script idea, and Jerome Bixby's like, well, I got to make this for my father, and I'm going to make this no matter what, and he made it no matter what, you know. All I'm saying is just like,
if I could just jump
if
into
it
it.
had better presentation. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right, let's just get on to the next thing. But what I want to say here is, again, from just a screen play and watching the interaction in the act, you know, what was really refreshing is not what nobody could whip out a phone and get distracted.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
just a conversation. And you mentioned 12 Angry Men before, Chris. Like, there's another great picture set in one room, you know, with just dialogue, and it was so powerful.
And that's an example of a movie where it's people stuck in a room with dialogue and really good production value behind it, and it makes it easier to ingest the information that's being presented to you, as opposed to this one where the quality ultimately suffers. The message suffers because of the quality. It's dated.
But
it's
not
very,
much.
very dated.
Like you can't take a script that good and say like, the lighting fucked that up for me.
Yeah, I didn't walk away feeling that either. Look, I can't tell you whether I would like it better if it was lit better. I can't tell you that, but
I don't think it would add anything. Like, I'm just so enthralled by the things the characters say. Like, to me, every line is needed in this movie. There's not one wasted line.
Okay, well then,
And that
all
I
right, then
love.
let me
I
throw
love
this
that.
wrench at you. What really ultimately bugged me in the presentation of this whole thing was the audio design, was the very noticeably bad ADR in some scenes, and on top of that, the unnecessarily bad music in some other scenes. Like the scene where he gets into I don't know. I want explanation of about
It's all
him being
just
like Buddha or Jesus. It's just like super heavy,
stock
drummy,
music. It's just
like stockish music, and it's just. I
stock
would have
music.
honestly, if they had no music throughout the film, or at least a good like 80-75% of the film, if there's no music and it was just the dialogue, I would have been way more brought into it. But the music was pretty distracting, frankly. You know, I
gotta
can
tell
get
you,
over
Murphy,
like
I
bad
didn't even
ADR
realize there
scenes.
was music in this movie.
I'm
'Cause
surprised
so
'cause
enthralled
it's
by the things
so
people are
apparent to
saying.
me.
Well, and it's just forgettable, like you said. Like, but again, like that's I don't know. All those little like periphery things are just like so not important with this movie. It's just all about the script and John Billingsley and Tony Todd, and they carry it. Like, yeah, man. And you know the guy who comes in with the gun, he's good too. I forget that actor's name. He's in everything, but I forget his name.
I feel like I should have it right. Dr. Will Gruber was played by Richard Riley. Riley? Or R-I-E-H-L-E? Riley?
Richard Riley?
Yeah.
Really?
And he's been in a lot of stuff over the years.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, let's, which performance would you hold up? Adam.
Okay. I would... I think all of them. I can't think of a one of them that was bad in the role. Even the professor that was the religious one, like she played the role so well. Like I totally
She was
believe
just
it.
annoying, but that's who she was playing. Yeah.
I thought
was
that the
Maud
love
Flanders.
interest, the love interest was great. She was again like generally like I felt that she was upset with him leaving, and the fact that she loved him, and just I just thought the
When she leaves, she's just like, I miss you, but you weren't Jesus.
Yeah, but
he's like, no, of course I wasn't. Of course I wasn't.
the whole cast stood up. Like it was good. It was not one of them I would say I could have done without.
Except
John-
for the guy that played the biker archaeologist dude. Could have done
No, I liked him. I thought it was you got like.
I hated his character, but he played it well.
He played it well.
Like he seemed like a guy who was legit pissed off to be in that room. Like he just seemed so friggin' agitated.
Yeah.
He played it well. Yeah.
I thought they played like I said it before, the academic crowd, they nailed every one of them.
Yeah. I'll throw mine to Tony Todd. I really enjoyed Tony Todd in this one.
Yeah, he was great.
Billingsley too. Johnny Walker Green. I didn't even know they made it in green. He's like, I love that line. I've probably said that like 50 times. Every time I go into a liquor store, I'm like, Johnny Walker Green.
I think the way he articulates and the way he speaks is just like it's masterful. It's enjoyable to watch.
Unique. He's unique in his delivery. Yeah. As is Tony Todd. He's such a memorable voice.
I'll give it to Richard Riley. Just because
he was great. Yeah, again, you felt the grief, the anger.
I cried.
Yeah.
And the fact that you know that his wife just died and it kills him. Like his wife dies, he finds out who his father is, and the stress of it all kills him.
Yeah.
Like, man, what a twist at the end of this movie. You're like, damn. See, but it's brilliant because that shows you why he does the things he does. He's like, it's all just death and heartbreak for me unless I just cut ties. And he tried to
which is heartbreak enough.
But it's like the lesson
which is
one. It's
heartbreak
like cutting off an
enough.
arm
You can
instead
never
of
have a life.
Yeah.
It seems.
It's a heartbreaking movie, man. Like, if you put your, in his position, put yourself in his position. And it's when he asks them, they're like, oh, like, living that long would be great. He's just like, would you want to, if you could? They're all like, yeah, it'd be great. And he's like, yeah. I don't know. Setting aesthetic, we know Murphy doesn't like it. So we'll see what Adam thinks about the setting aesthetic.
Again, it doesn't need any more. It's a one-room movie. I'm happy with it. I'm glad there was no meals, even other than the little snack. But it was perfect.
No distractions. No distractions from the brilliant conversation they were having. I agree. Yeah, to me it's serviceable, and that's all it needs to be.
You know what else I liked about it? There
this
wasn't
movie
even
could have
enough
just been
furniture.
standing around a tree. I don't care where this movie.
There was not even enough furniture for everybody to sit down at. They're sitting on the fireplace or sitting, standing on the floor.
And that was realistic,
Yeah.
It felt grounded, which is good because it's such a kind of crazy story. Like, all right, let's hit some more.
You should just went the Are You Afraid of the Dark route and did it around a fire pit.
No, that's cheesy. Except when Are You Afraid of the Dark does it, of course.
So, movie morsels for The Man from Earth 2007. The whole movie was shot using 2 Panasonic DVX-100 camcorders, which probably explains the overall grainy look of the film. The story is Jerome Bigsby's last work, which he completed on his deathbed. Or actually, I think it's... Is it Jerome Bigsby? I thought it was...
No, Jerome's the son.
It's not. Yeah, Jerome's the son.
director.
It's Michael Bigsby. Yeah, Michael Bigsby's last work, which he completed on his deathbed.
Oh, it can't be. Michael Bigsby must be his son.
Yeah, really. 1882
Look at the
to
age.
2007. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
wow,
crazy.
yeah.
Oh, this movie's even more
Okay.
sad. God damn it. God damn, this is a sad movie.
So, all right, the story is Jerome Bigsby's last work, which he completed on his deathbed in April 1998. Bigsby dictated the last of the screenplay to his son, screenwriter Emerson Bixby. That's the one. After Jerome Bixby's death, the script was given to Richard Schenkman to direct on a budget of just $200,000 US dollars, the equivalent of
Imagine even making a movie for that.
$282,266 these days. So, the film was shot in 8 days after a week of rehearsals. There were no deleted scenes for this movie, only 3 deleted lines, as explained by director Richard Schenkman in the DVD commentary.
And that adds to it, It feels like a conversation they all just have for an hour and a half. Like, it doesn't feel like there's cuts and stuff, and I like that.
At around
Just
an hour
flows.
and 18 minutes. This is no news to you guys, but you know. The Tony Todd character's Dan mentions that he's going to go home and watch Star Trek. Tony Todd appeared in
Yeah, I
several
love that.
episodes and 1 video game of Star Trek since the 1990s.
That's a good nod.
John Billingsley also starred in Star Trek Enterprise, and screenwriter Jerome Bixby wrote several episodes of the original series. Richard Riley also guest starred in episodes of Next Generation, Voyager, and Star Trek Enterprise. Yeah, he's the man that wrote Mirror Mirror.
Okay. I don't like that episode because I don't like the Mirror Universe. He gave us the Mirror Universe. Damn you, Bixby!
Yeah, Bixby wrote Mirror Mirror, and he wrote like 4 others, I think. I forgot the titles, but that one stood out. I was like, oh yeah. Just before the 1 minute mark, the Vasquez rocks can be seen from the less dramatic side, showing the moon on the left of the screen. The Vasquez rocks have been used in Star Trek TOS many times, to the point where they evoke the original series and have often been used to reference Star Trek and other shows.
Every Star Trek series uses Vasquez rocks.
A character similar to John Oldman, a seemingly immortal Mesopotamian named Akharon, going by the name Flint in the episode, appears in Requiem for Methuselah from 1969. This episode is also written by Jerome Bixby. Methuselah, yeah. A very similar initial premise, but the plots developed differently in a 1960 Twilight Zone episode, Long Live Walter Jameson. And as she's leaving, Edith, the literalist Christian, pauses and kisses John on the cheek. This could be a reference to the biblical event of Judas kissing Jesus as he portrays him to the Roman soldiers in the Garden of Gethsemane. As Judas is betraying Jesus, Edith also betrays John's message of what he, as Jesus, was actually trying to teach, and instead chooses to continue to believe what she has been taught by the interpretation of the Bible is written. Cinematography by
That's what's funny. She's just like,
Shahidi.
you cannot compare this to the true word. And Tony Todd's like, what true word? It's been revised like 15 times. It's like, yeah.
Cinematography by Afshin Shahidi, edited by Neil Grieve, music by Mark Hinton Stewart, release date of November 13th, 2007, running time of 89 minutes, budget of $200,000. I couldn't find a box office for this. It just says budget.
I don't think it had a theater
$200,000.
release.
No, it basically was like released on DVD and sci-fi channels, and its popularity gained through people just torrenting the movie.
It's good. It organically gained its following, man. Like, no horseshit, no $500 million in advertising to trick you into seeing some shit movie. Yeah, man. Respect. All right. So, what do we got here? Rewatchability. For me, it does, just because I find it's like any like really thoughtful Star Trek episode. Those are the ones I can watch again and again, like Measure of a Man, like Far Beyond the Stars, like In the Pale Moonlight. You know, the great duet.
Or the ones
duet,
you want.
Duet can just take place in a jail cell and outside of it, and that's a fantastic freaking DS9 episode. You know, but sorry, Adam.
Yeah, my feeling is the ones you tell people about to go watch.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
and I've told countless people after I watched this a year, just over a year ago, to see this movie, go watch it. It's to me, it's like you need to see it again just to catch more, because there's a lot going on in that, a lot of dialogue, and you might miss a bit. So you're right. It's show me more, show it again, just you know. And I don't. It's not one of those ones I need to see every year, but certainly I'd go back to it next year and watch it again. Now, the one mistake I'll say is they did the sequel, which I don't think was good.
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I didn't watch it. I saw the trailer. The
I
trailer
don't see
looked
what
better.
you would do.
It was interesting because somebody recognized him and they, tracked him down and all this. And it was interesting.
See, that ruins the mystique of the whole thing.
Yeah, it did. And I watched back to back.
Some movies should never get sequels, and this is one.
Yeah, this is one of them.
Yeah.
Don't bother. Don't bother. John Billingsley was in it, by the way. He was in it. John Billingsley was in it. Yeah.
Same character and everything, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
But
the
I bet
friend.
you it looked better.
I don't think I'm gonna go
I
see
bet
it.
you.
It had more
production value.
more sets.
Yes,
Chris.
I'm
It had
sure
more
it was
sets.
the picture of a modern movie. It looked very shiny and was hollow garbage.
See, now
wasn't-
combine
it
both
wasn't
of
shiny.
these films. Okay, you can take all the bad stuff of the sequel, just give it its budget of this first one. They could have redone the movie, and I would have been like, all right.
Might not have had a better budget.
I don't know if it did or not.
It just would have had newer cameras because it came out years later. They just whatever they cameras they rented just happened to be better.
But you know what though? That does show there was enough interest and enough desire for something more.
Yeah, true. Like no theatrical release and still get a sequel. I mean, I guess a lot of shitty movies do. How many Sharknadoes is there? But this is a good movie, not a shitty movie. But,
I think they just dropped.
does it hold up? Does for me. It's still a top 10 movie for me. I love this movie. It encapsulates everything I love about Star Trek, except in the reverse. Rather than like pontificating about the future, it's pontificating about the past. And I'm a historical nut too, so it hits all the boxes for me. Good performances by actors I enjoy. It's a unique movie. You don't get movies like this because you can't release them in theater. People want flash and explosions and stupid shit. But like, this is just a fascinating way to spend an hour and a half. It's like having a conversation and you don't even
Could
have
have
to
been
be
an
having
hour.
like it's like having a conversation with those people. No, you can't cut out a single line of this movie because then it's confusing. Like every line is servicing the exploration that they're doing. It's not like you could cut out 5 minutes of a car chase there's no fat. There's no fat to trim. There's no wasted pauses between sentences. It's just a fast-paced, intriguing conversation for me. Adam.
For you. For me, it doesn't hold up. It's not the best production value.
Oh my god. I'm going to judge every movie you do bring to this show from now on production value only. Because apparently that's all that matters. You have to have money. Money talks. That's what makes a good movie. Fucking money.
No, Davan, what makes a good movie is that it needs to be entertaining, and I didn't find this film entertaining.
You weren't fascinated by this conversation.
No, I thought it was because it was all just going to lead to.
You're not going to like
him
Star
being
Trek,
like,
my friend.
I was Jesus. No, I like Star Trek. I enjoy Star Trek.
The musical episode.
This wasn't for me. This wasn't for me. It was so slow paced and just like, let's talk about whataboutisms and then not really answer any questions. We're just going to give you more questions upon questions upon questions. We're going to make you think about stuff, sure. But, that's all we're going to do. We're just going to give you more questions. It felt like
Adam.
It felt like Lost. It was a J.J. Abrams like style storytelling.
No, it's the opposite of J.J. Literally the opposite of J.J. Abrams. I detest everything he's ever done.
It literally presents questions without any answers.
No, no J.J. Abrams thing has ever asked a question. An interesting question.
All of Lost is presenting questions that are never answered.
Yeah, but like stupid things, not like intriguing things about history and like biology.
My comparison
philosophy.
holds. My comparison holds.
No, it doesn't. Adam,
Yes,
tell
it
Murphy
does.
why he's so wrong.
He is.
Like,
I can't believe you brought Lost into this because
it's the opposite.
Yeah, it is.
One's hollow trash just to keep you coming back week after week, and one is just like earnest and
yes, but
just
the
conversation.
Storytelling method of I'm going to present you a question without giving you any form of answer holds because that's
what
what
answer do you
happens in
want?
this movie.
But that's a conversation.
What answers I want is I want some explanation on his prehistory. I want more explanation on why he just says
why do you want
it's all
why do you want him to
might.
belabor the fact that every day for 10,000 years was the same? What do you want? More do you want? That's what Quest for Fire
I want to
is.
know
That's a
what
different
events
movie.
he was a part of throughout human history.
He told
that were
you,
actually,
and they weren't the
he hung out with
caveman
Buddha
ones you
for
wanted to
fucking
be
80
with.
years, and then he gets confused as Jesus for another 100, and then what?
Yeah.
What did he do? Did he like
Think of that.
had
That-
any
that-
part of the
France for a
Inquisition?
while.
Like,
But
how
Chris,
did he avoid wars?
Wait a second. The conversion or the leap from the following the Buddha to Christianity and becoming Jesus, like that is monumental.
That's not a profound leap for me.
is.
I've had.
You
that,
want him to
I've
talk
had that-
about somebody that threw a spear at him in prehistory when he's talking about studying with the Buddha and shit. Like you're like, I don't understand why he doesn't remember
he
spears.
said he talks.
But-
He says with the Buddha, but he's like, oh, I learned like body meditations. Like, okay, you spent 80 years with Buddha, and you've got nothing more to say other than that you studied.
No,
with the Buddha?
but the point is, he did have
There's
more
only
to
so
say.
much time in this
He
movie.
did have more to say. He went and became, the father
A
of
teacher to
modern
teach them.
Christianity. I mean,
Yeah.
Anyway, listen. To me, this
It's like I took those teachings, tried to modernize them, and such and such.
I appreciate
put
the
on a
fact that you
cross
wanted it to look better. That's fine. I mean, I can even buy that, because it didn't look great. Fair, but it didn't for me.
I just didn't want to have plot holes.
For me, it didn't detract. I was engaged the whole picture. So
You have yet to isolate a plot hole.
well, I think that he probably could. So let's not go there right now. But the
Do
point,
you want me to
All right.
reiterate the fact that the man lived 14,000 years without being injured other more than pneumonia? He didn't.
Yeah, but
he didn't
well,
have
no,
one
sickness
experience
makes sense. He has
at
perfect
all in
cellular regeneration.
all of those years where he's like, one time I was stabbed in the chest, but hey, I survived. He
but
like
that
what about
doesn't matter,
what about him
Chris.
being?
Yeah, why
No,
would
it
he
does.
mention
Okay,
that? Why would
okay,
he
here,
mention
let
that
me
in the
lay this
context
out
of
for
this
you, okay?
conversation?
Jesus
sure,
was
lay it
put
out.
on a cross, and he was stabbed in the chest with a spear. What happened there?
He never said he was.
How
stabbed
did he
in the chest
survive
with a
that?
spear.
Yes,
He
he
never
was
said he
stabbed
was
in the
stabbed
chest with a spear before he was crucified.
That's not what he says.
No, of course he doesn't. He glosses over that. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't go on about
because
any
that never
injury.
happened.
He never said. There's no chance.
Why are
in
you
hell
obsessed
that
with
man
his
lived
injuries? Why would those be
Because there's
important
no
to you?
chance in hell this man lives 14,000 years without coming across some sort of catastrophic collision with something. He would have been struck by lightning. He's been on Earth
No,
that
you
long.
wouldn't.
He actually has
Again,
a chance of being struck
he
by
has the
lightning hundreds of times over.
If you lived that long, why would you go out in lightning? Why wouldn't you learn that
the
going
point
out in lightning
being,
is
the point being, Chris, is that he's got the longevity. He certainly can handle some things. Now,
okay,
listen.
Let's look
Hold
at it this
on.
way.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Argue about the whole stabbing in the side and all that stuff. I mean, did that really even happen? Who knows?
Exactly. He didn't say it happened, so he said basically everything you know about his life is bullshit.
Yeah.
So
Like
any of this
somebody's
stuff that
written-
you think, yeah,
Exactly.
unless he said it happened to him, assume it didn't. Because that's what he says. He's just like he was sneaking away and somebody just happened to see him. That was pretty funny, actually. He was like, so I was going to sneak away all freaking slick like, and but he's just like, ah.
Okay, it's still the
Hey
biggest
guys,
plot hole
I
in
gotta
this
run
film
up
is
and get my. I gotta get my battery pack. I'm gonna go here.
Yep.
I'll be right back.
All right.
All right,
All I'm
let's
saying is
move
the
on.
biggest plot hole is the fact that I've lived 35 years. I have cut myself, hurt myself, damaged myself multiple times. You know,
How many
I've
of those
had
things killed you?
None, but enough to like
None,
I
and
have
you don't have
scars
perfect cellular regeneration. He says he doesn't scar because he has perfect cellular regeneration. They close that plot hole for you, unless you can kill him. Like, and he even says that he's like, I might just friggin' like another reason he like leaves people behind and stuff. He's just like because I might just like step out in front of a car and die. I don't know that. He's just like, but he's like, you would get very good at avoidance. Like you wouldn't live for all this time and just get stupider at like running
can't
into trouble.
avoid-
You wouldn't be this teenager.
You
Watch
can't
the sequel,
avoid
then. Watch the
ants.
sequel. Watch the
Oh,
sequel.
why does that explain some of that for Murphy? Yeah.
Maybe I
watch
will
the
watch the
sequel then,
sequel, and it could make the first film better for me, and that could be a whole different thing. But like as it stands, I have more questions about this film and the plot holes
But
that were
that's
presented
good.
to it than
It's making you think. What I don't
I'm
like
not
about
saying
a
it's
movie is when
bad,
I watch it
Davan,
and there's nothing there. Like there's nothing. It doesn't make me question. Doesn't make me nothing. Like that's a bad movie experience.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing in any way. Like it presents excellent questions, but it doesn't expand upon them in the way that I was hoping for, and it leaves me unsatisfied, and therefore I'm not entertained or satisfied with the film as a whole.
That's fair. That's fair.
But you're entirely wrong.
I disagree.
That's
You've never
fair.
been
You
more
guys-
wrong, except since Gremlins. Like there's Gremlins in this.
Gremlins 2 is a better movie.
But see, that's the this is what happens here. See, every now and then Murphy gets this thing in his mind that skews a movie for him. For one,
Even Kevin
he's not
agrees.
watching Gremlins as Gremlins. He's just like, I'm watching Gremlins, and it's not as good as the second one in my mind. So I have to just like not even accept Gremlins as existing as a good movie because it's not as good. It's not that it's not a good movie. It's just this other movie's better. So it can't be two good movies. It has to be a good movie and a shitty movie. Like that's what you're doing here. You're like, this was a good movie, made me ask questions, and, you know, it had lots of interesting dialogue, but the lighting was shitty and just not a good movie. Like, it's like
I didn't
man.
say it's not a good movie. I was just, oh my god,
You said it doesn't hold up.
It doesn't hold up because I feel like its production value definitely doesn't hold up. Like if okay,
But what would for that budget? Like, what?
Hold on, though. How can you compare? Let's go back to the last movie. Quest for Fire. Production value sucked. Okay, it really wasn't very good.
But it was the 81. This is 2007.
But it had way more money than this did. It spent 12 million or like millions of dollars to make in 81. This
to
got
go to
200,000.
the vast landscapes and shoot incredible scenery. The biggest
Inflation?
the biggest downfalls of Quest for Fire was like the Wagaboo makeup, the saber-tooth, the woolly mammoth, and probably the cannibal tribes makeup a bit, you know. But like the main characters, the Avaka tribe, that all stuff looked cool. There wasn't a moment of that where I was like, that's seamless, you know.
Okay,
Like
here's my thing. So, but if I turn in Quest for Fire on in 2023 for first time, okay, and I'm thinking, man, this looks awful, and it really does. Like compared
Especially
to
once the elephants come on, then you're like, oh my god.
But you can't really go wrong when your movie is set in a living room. That's all there is to it. Like, what's the worst thing is that they got maybe older clothes.
Like, I think that's. I get it from your perspective a bit, Murphy, just because you're into cameras and stuff like that, so like you're looking for that kind of stuff. But there's no. If I'm making this movie, there's like. I have to like you run your cost benefit charts, you know what I mean? There's no benefit to adding extra cost to this movie in any significant degree for the things you're looking for, because that's not what this movie's about. Like if this movie cost $200,000 to make, I wouldn't spend another $10,000 to make the light better. Like that's too much.
I would
budget, but it adds.
I would have
nothing.
added some background lights.
The
It probably
benefit
could have used
isn't
a bit of
there.
side lighting.
Why would there be
There is
background
benefit
lights
there.
in a cabin? Like it would just remove from the realism. Like it
Because
wouldn't be
there's
worth the
background
money.
light. I've
spent.
got like lights
It,
on.
it
in my
would make
kitchen,
like
you
a
know,
couple
like-
of camera wonks happy, and they just spent like $10,000 on Chris Murphy. Like, you know what I mean? Like for the mass
not a-
audiences who just are gonna get sucked
Okay.
into this conversation. Like
the vast
there's
audience
no sense in
isn't-
spending
no,
money.
that's what I'm trying to get at here. Is if you want to present your idea, you're going to want to present the idea in a manner that makes it easily digestible. You're not spotting
What
the
was
flaws.
what was the undigestible part? What about the lighting makes this dialogue?
Like I spoke about it earlier. The
undigestible?
lighting,
No,
the
you didn't.
audio in this movie is terrible. The audio balancing in this movie is terrible.
You can hear
They could
every
have spent
single
another.
word.
you could hear every single word, yes, but they had to use a lot of ADR. They could have done better with audio recording and balancing in general. The music and everything was terrible. There are scenes, I shit
Dude, you liked the music in that Star Trek episode the other day.
Yes, because that was actually music that was produced. Unlike what you think is AI or whatever claims you were going on about in the podcast, the music that was like, okay, the music that they did for this film, apparently the guy had to phone it into some dude in UK who was producing the film.
Yeah,
or the music. All right,
because again,
I don't know if it was stock, whatever it was.
The
The music, in my opinion, was abrasive and very counterintuitive to the film. Here's how I would have filmed this. Okay, I would have taken out 80% of the music. I would have used deep lenses. I would have used a bigger set. I would have given it better lighting so it was more balanced.
Why a bigger set?
All this does, Davan, is present a seamless and clear image for people to get sucked into the conversation that's happening. Okay?
A bigger set sucks you into a personal conversation.
Compared to today's standards of image quality and sound quality, this movie does not hold up.
No, I want to know what a bigger set adds to this movie.
A bigger set adds the ability to get better camera angles. Not I'm crunched up against a cabin wall and I have to use a 45 millimeter lens to get everybody into this one shot.
For this, you see, for these pretty things that you're looking for, that's what all modern movies are doing wrong.
How
They're sacrificing.
Am I sacrificing? It's not.
I'll tell you
sacrificing.
why.
It's adding to it.
No. What adds to this movie is the smaller set because it becomes more intimate. It becomes more real. Like Adam said, they're sitting on the fireplace. Like if you had this bigger set and they all have a comfy couch, that doesn't make this a better movie.
They don't need to. I'm not saying no, Davan. I'm not saying they need a bigger set. The people that need the bigger set are the camera. The people behind the camera. They're the ones that need the bigger set to make it. It can look intimate. It can look small. They can be in a tight cabin. You can do that with better angles and lenses if you had more space to put the camera. But a lot of the time, this movie was literally
instead of like a real.
A lot of
camera.
the time,
They
this
need to,
movie,
like,
you could tell the cameraman was stuck in the corner of the room because they had nowhere else to film, and they needed to get the people that they had in the shot, and they didn't have the time to do coverage shots and get everyone's reactionary. There are literally scenes in this movie where the color difference is changed because they're definitely cutting between 2 different days of filming, and the lighting is off because they're going off of natural lighting. What?
You just don't like the editing of this movie. Like
editing in this movie.
You'd get somebody to do a little post, and you'd have been happy with the whole thing. But like, to me, that's
it's more than that. I don't think you completely grasp like the amount of work that goes into producing something that looks like a seamless image, like the movie that we'll talk about here, hopefully in the next 10 minutes.
But my point
65.
is none of that shit matters, man. I would rather have an interesting conversation for an hour and a half, which no movie ever has.
It does matter. Yeah,
no, let me finish.
It does matter.
I'm
going to tell you why.
An interesting conversation for an hour and a half because no movie has that, rather than watching another shallow, flashy movie that has all the production values in the world. There's a million of them that come out every friggin' day that look great, and they're shallow and unmemorable and boring. So and production value adds no entertainment value to anything.
Davan, what value is your thought-provoking story when it's told through a potato? Who's gonna sit there and listen to your thought-provoking story when it hurts their eyes and their ears to try and understand what your story is?
The good thing about listening to a thought-provoking story is you don't even need your eyes. You can listen.
Davan, again, the words are if it hurts to listen to and watch. Hurts to listen to.
It doesn't.
So my thoughts are basically this, is that in this picture, you didn't need the production, and I'm pointing to you, Chris, over there.
It adds nothing.
It didn't need it. Like, I think we all walked away thinking this is an interesting story. I've got good dialogue. I'm engaged. I would like my friends to go watch this movie. You know, for the production side of it, I would agree. If 65, which we're going to talk about here next, didn't have, at least it didn't look good, I would have checked out in the beginning.
I don't think it did look good.
That's you don't.
I mean, it looked okay
of,
for like a direct
good.
to streaming thing. It looked okay, but like if that were a feature film nowadays, it would look very bad. No, it was not.
Yes, it was.
What? Then it does look bad. The CGI on those dinosaurs is friggin' awful. Jurassic Park looked better in 1991 or 3 or whatever.
It really did.
way better.
Yeah, that
Way
movie
better.
holds up. Listen,
Yeah,
I think we've spoken enough about Man from Earth. We need to move on.
But we're about to talk about a movie whose production values are apparently very good, but looks worse than a movie made in 1993. So let's just keep that in mind while we're reviewing 65. So here in Theater 3.